Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at solving equations involving quadratic trinomials. So quadratic means it has an x squared term. Trinomial means it has three terms. We looked at binomials with two terms last time. This time we're looking at trinomials. So just as for quadratic binomial equations, one side must be equal to 0. We factorize the quadratic expression and then use the null factor law. What makes trinomials different is the way that we factorize is differently. So quadratic trinomials look like this. So this is a quadratic because of the x squared term. It's a trinomial because it has 1, 2, 3 terms. So here one side is already equal to 0. Now that won't always be done for you, but because it's done for us here, we can skip straight to the second step and factorize. So the way that you factorize quadratic trinomials, you find two numbers that multiply to give the constant term and add to give the number in front of x. So what we do is find two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. So those numbers are 4 and 3. But 4 and 3 aren't the solutions to the equation, they're the numbers that go in the brackets. So we picked 4 and 3 because 4 times 3 is 12, 4 plus 3 is 7. So now that we've factorized this, we use the null factor law just like we've been doing. Either the first bracket's equal to 0 or the second bracket's equal to 0. If x plus 4 equals 0, then x equals minus 4. If x plus 3 is equal to 0, then x is equal to minus 3. They are the two solutions. So remember, quadratics sometimes have two solutions, sometimes have one solution. So let's have a look at solving this equation here. 1, 2, 3 terms, one of which is an x squared term. It's a quadratic trinomial. So once again, first step already done, one side equals 0. So now I need to factorize. I need to find two numbers that multiply to 49 and add not to 14, but to negative 14. So you might freak out and say, oh, 49 is a big number, but it doesn't have many factors. If you don't know off the top of your head the two numbers that multiply to 49 and add to negative 14, go through factors of 49. So all you have is 1 and 49, which clearly won't work, but 7 and 7. That will work if they're both negative. So this will be x minus 7 times x minus 7 equals 0. Minus 7 times minus 7 is positive 49. Minus 7 plus minus 7 is negative 14. So this will only have one solution. If x minus 7 equals 0, x equals 7, and we're done. So let's look at this one here. X squared minus 3x minus 28 equals 0. So we need to find two numbers that multiply to negative 28 and add to negative 3. These are a little more tricky when the constant term's negative. It means one of our numbers is negative and one is positive. So let's set up our brackets. So if we're not sure, let's go through factors of 28. So 28 and 1, 14 and 2 won't work, but 7 and 4 will work. What we have to do is make the 7 negative and the 4 positive. So the numbers are negative 7 and 4 because negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. Negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3. So now we just use the null factor law, same as we've been doing. Either the first thing equals 0, which would mean x equals 7, or the second thing is equal to 0. X would be minus 4. So let's look at this equation here. 2x squared minus 8x plus 6 equals 0. Once again, the first step is done for us. So we skip to factorizing. Now this is different because the x squared has a 2 in front. It didn't have anything in front of it in the previous cases. We can only use these methods when the number in front of x squared is 1. So if the number in front of x squared is not 1, as it is here, we need to first take out a common factor. Each of these three terms has a common factor of 2. We couldn't do that in any of the previous examples because there was no common factor. Here the common factor is 2, we write it out the front. So what do I times by 2 to get 2x squared? X squared. What do I times by 2 to get negative 8x? Is negative 4x. What do I times by 2 to get to positive 6? And that's 3. Now I have a quadratic trinomial here. So I'm going to leave the 2 alone and just factorize what is in the brackets. So two numbers that multiply to 3 and add to -4. I can do that because the number in front of x squared is now 1, or there's nothing in front of it. So two numbers that multiply to 3 and add to -4, they would be -3 and -1. So the 2 actually doesn't affect the solution at all. Either x minus 3 equals 0 or x minus 1 equals 0. And we're done. Now we're going to look at examples where the first step is not done for us. So let's look at these two equations here. In neither equation is one side equal to 0. This side not equal to 0, but we can make one side equal 0 really easily. All we have to do here is add 6 to both sides. Remember, you can do whatever you want to one side of the equation as long as you do it to the other. So adding 6 to both sides of the equation gives me x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0, because minus 6 plus 6 is 0. Now we solve this exactly like the ones on the previous slide. We're going to find two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to -5, so they are minus 2 and minus 3. So x minus 2, x minus 3 equals 0. Either the first bracket equals 0 or the second bracket equals 0. We've got our solutions and we're done. Let's look at this equation here. X squared equals 3x plus 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 3x and also subtract 10 from both sides. We get x squared minus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. So I subtracted 3x from both sides, subtracted 10 from both sides. Now that one side's equal to 0, we go to step 2. We solve it just like the ones on the previous slide. I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to -10 and add to -3. So those two numbers happen to be minus 5 and positive 2. So now that I factorize, use the null factor law. Either the first bracket equals 0, that would mean x equals 5, or the second bracket equals 0, which means x equals minus 2. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.